Silence is often misunderstood. People associate it with weakness, with passivity, with the inability to respond. But in reality, silence is not the absence of strength. It is the presence of control. In a world where everyone is speaking, reacting, and constantly trying to be heard, the ability to remain silent becomes rare. And what is rare is often misunderstood. Most people speak not because they have something meaningful to say, but because they feel uncomfortable with silence. They fill the space with words, not to express truth, but to escape themselves. Because silence reveals something many are not ready to face. It removes distraction. It removes performance. It removes the illusion of control. And what remains is the self. To sit in silence is to confront your own thoughts without interruption, to hear the questions you've been avoiding, to notice the patterns you've been ignoring. That is why silence feels heavy for many people. Not because silence is difficult, but because honesty is. When you remove noise, you remove the places where the mind hides. And this is where strength begins. Not in speaking louder, not in proving yourself, not in reacting faster than others, but in the ability to pause. There is a space between what happens to you and how you respond to it. Most people live without ever noticing that space. They react immediately, driven by emotion, habit, or ego. But the moment you become aware of that space, you gain something rare: choice. And in that choice lies control. Silence is what creates that space. It slows you down. It interrupts the automatic reaction. It gives your mind time to observe instead of react. And observation changes everything. Because when you observe, you are no longer inside the emotion. You are looking at it. And once you can look at something, you are no longer controlled by it. This is why silence is not passive. It is deeply active. It is the act of holding yourself steady when everything inside you wants to react. It is discipline without noise. And discipline is the foundation of power. Not power over others, but power over yourself. Because the person who cannot control their words cannot control their emotions. And the person who cannot control their emotions cannot control their life. We often think strength is visible, loud, assertive, dominant. But real strength is often invisible. It is in the decision not to respond, not to explain yourself unnecessarily, not to engage in every conflict. It is in choosing silence when speaking would only serve your ego. And this choice is not easy, because silence does not give immediate reward. It does not give validation. It does not make you feel right in the moment. But over time, it builds something far more valuable: clarity. When you speak less, you begin to see more. You notice patterns in people. You notice the intentions behind words. You notice how often conversations are driven not by truth but by the need to be right. And once you see this, you begin to understand that not every situation requires your voice. Some require your awareness. And awareness is quiet. This is why silence is not emptiness. It is depth. It is not the absence of thought. It is the refinement of it. The more comfortable you become with silence, the less you need to prove yourself. The less you need to explain, the less you need to react. And the more stable you become. Because stability does not come from controlling the world. It comes from controlling your response to it. And that begins in silence. Silence is where discipline is trained, where awareness is sharpened, where the self becomes clear. It is not something you use once. It is something you practice daily, in small moments, before you answer, before you react, before you speak. You pause. And in that pause, you return to control. Over time, this becomes your nature. Not reacting impulsively. Not speaking unnecessarily. Not losing yourself in emotion, but remaining grounded.